Hey everybody, welcome back to another Sunday night live over here on the channel. I appreciate everybody every Sunday if you join the conversation. As you can see tonight, we are talking about homes affordable until 2023. So it's 7 years before homes become affordable. As always, I want to make sure you guys can hear clearly if you decide to watch it on a replay and join us live. So I'm just checking my phone real quick to make sure the sound is great. And then we will have a conversation. And we'll talk about this tonight, and then we'll talk about some other things that I kind of want to make into as well. And all right, perfect. Because there's different conversations and things that we need to discuss, especially if you are trying to buy a house currently, if you're currently a homeowner in a house, and different things as the real estate market starts to shift. So be very mindful as things shift in America, but not only in the world. Sometimes turn off this music as we approach different things. Hey, what's going on? That we approach different things. So before we start into the conversation tonight, as always, I want to hit you guys with where those mortgage rates are at in the market at the moment. And then we'll have this discussion and let me know your thoughts. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe channel. Appreciate you being here. Let us know how you get over to us. The comments below, whether it's on the live chat or whether it's on the replay. And hopefully you like it. Hopefully you'll stay over here to join us in conversation. We appreciate it. And so let's kind of look at these rates. Hey, what's going on, Alex? Your audio is messing up. Let me see. I look at it on my end. If it's messing up, I'll just pull out the thing. We'll just see. Let me see. I look at it on my end. If it's messing up, just pull out the thing. All right, there we go. So I'm going to check the audio real quick again and see where it's at. We just might not have a mic tonight. All right, there we go. So I'm going to check the audio real quick again and see where it's at. All right, so it sounds like we should be okay. Let me know how the audio is going. I just pulled the mic out, so we just won't work with that mic no more. All right, he said it's better. Okay. All right, so we will just X the mic. So there will be no mic in the computer today. And it probably won't be no more because I don't know how to fix it. So all right, let's look at where we're at with these mortgage rates currently. So if you guys are in the market right now to purchase, or if you're trying to possibly refinance, I know a lot of people might have been told by a lender a couple years ago that, hey, buy a house now with the rates being as they are, even if they were in the fives at the time, or maybe the low sixes, and they said that you can always, refinance hopefully in a couple years, because they might have told you that they see the rates kind of trending down. Unfortunately, as we see, the rates went up and not down. So you should not always rely on refinancing when purchasing a house. If you cannot sustain that mortgage at the price in which you purchased the house at the rate in which the rate is set during that time, do not buy the house, you guys. I've been really recently trying to focus everybody on their finances as Americans, and just as people in general. We have to change our mindset when it comes to finances. So if you were quoted a certain mortgage rate at the time, thinking or hoping from what the lender told you that it would go down, no. We want to purchase where it makes sense at that rate, because if it never goes back down, you're comfortable as far as being able to pay your monthly mortgage without any dilemmas. Of course, we can't predict what's going to happen in the future if you lose a job or things like that, family things, family matters, jobs, relocation, but we want to put you in a good position financially. So we have to change our financial mindset. But needless to say, the rates now for conventional are at a 30-year fixed 6.56, sorry. 15-year conventional 6.09, 30-year jumbo 6.68. The 7.6 soft arm per se is 6.06. The 30-year FHA fixed 6.10. 30-year VA is 6.12. As you guys know, rates have come down a little bit, but they were trending higher. Last week we got all the way up to about 6.6, 6.7. And again, this is a national mortgage rates. This is not saying that this is where your rate could be at if you got a loan today. It's different factors, DTI, credit score, things that kind of make up where your rate will fall at. All right, savings, all those different things. So that's just a glimpse as far as where those rates are at the moment nationally. All right, so let's talk about this topic that I found very interesting. This is something that I have been kind of screaming the last couple years about, the unaffordability crisis in housing. And it's not just America, it is a global thing as well. We're not the only country experiencing unaffordability. We were lucky a couple times when we had a live chat that we got some people that came from Canada that came into the chat. I believe one time a person from South Korea came into our chat. I forget what live we were doing, and he was saying how the prices over there are very expensive as well. So it's not an American thing. It's a global thing in regards to the housing market. We know, Japan, China, and everything went through something similar. But according to a new report out by Oxford Economics, they are saying that we will not see affordability in the housing market for about at least another 7 years. So if you guys are in the market right now that want to buy a house, but you are trying to wait for a more affordable time to possibly buy that house, depending on what market you're in. Because again, remember, real estate is very local, and not only just with the state, but also the city, the county, even the neighborhood. You could be in one neighborhood, houses could be going for less than the next neighborhood. So it's very local and it's very specific driven in location. However, according to the Oxford Economics, it says shifts in household incomes, home prices, and mortgage rates will be key to housing affordability improvements in the next decade, according to the Oxford Economics. This is written by Dave Gallagher. Right here it says, even if home prices flatten and interest rates fall, it will take at least 7 years for the housing market to swing back toward affordability, according to a new report from Oxford Economics. The economic advisory firm's latest housing affordability index was measured at 77.9 in the first quarter of 2026. Over the next 10 years, Oxford forecasts 3 different scenarios for its index based on how home prices and mortgage rates shift. So they have 3 different scenarios of how it could possibly shift when it comes to prices and mortgage rates in the next couple years. So their first scenario is, let me move this over here, reaching 100, as far as how they're basing it on their scale of points per se. Reaching 100 says the level at which homes are generally considered affordable by 2033 if home prices remain flat and mortgage rates drop by about 50 base points. So they're saying if home prices remain flat and they bring the mortgage, of course, the base point down on the mortgage rates, that it'll create more of affordability. If we don't see no more growth home-wise and we see rates go down, it'll allow you, of course, for the dollar to it'll be cheaper to borrow, of course, on the dollar, and hopefully your monthly payments would be less, according to if the home prices stayed flat. Next one, they said, based on reaching 100 by 2036, if prices remain flat and rates don't drop. So they're saying that we could see a longer point to affordability if home prices stay flat, rates don't go nowhere. They stay in the 6s where they're at now. They would see a more affordable thing in 2036, because hopefully they're also, even though they're not really standing here, they're basing off of the income too. So hopefully they're thinking that possibly income will rise, and that way it'll be sustainable and they keep up and create a more affordable outcome in the future by 2036 without anything moving and staying consistent where we're at now. And then the last one, it says staying below 80 for the next 10 years if historical baseline trends continue. So again, the 80, these numbers are based on their housing type of how they report the index on housing and everything. So it's very, very interesting. Let me see. Hey, Texita, YouTube making it hard to switch users these days. Watch the video last week. Excellent show. Thanks for watching last week. Appreciate you. Hopefully you guys got some insight around different type of forms of loans or things you can explore as far as a buyer. Kevin's a great lender and with excellent. He's great as far as educating people looking to buy, refinance, and things like that. Alex said London, England having problem with housing with squatters called guardians. Article in NY Times. Also a third of buildings in Seattle are vacant. Cities are adding vacancy tax on West Coast. Wow, yeah, I haven't read any of that yet, but it's crazy about the squatters. As you know, if you know, we were having a big problem in the Metro Atlanta area in regards to squatters as well, where you know, a lot of them were just taking over vacant properties, rental properties, even houses that were possibly put on the market for sale, where there were absentee owners, which are basically owners who do not occupy the space. However, they have second homes, third homes, fourth homes, or they bought a bunch of, investment properties and they were renting them out per se. But I have to look into the whole thing as far as the Seattle vacant thing. I know that there is a big issue as far as commercial buildings being vacant nowadays. But I didn't know that they started charging a tax in regards to the vacancy. So that's very interesting. I have to look into that. Thank you for that, Alex. I got to read into that. Commercial in Denver has a vacancy rate in the upper 30% range. Yeah, these commercial properties, a lot of them are going vacant. Of course, because people are either one, not going into offices no more, one, not getting called back into it. But like even things like malls, right? Something that was timely as far as what we went to back in the day. A lot of these malls are going vacant. Is very interesting. Well, as we see things shifting. I live on the edge of an industrial area, was driving through, noticing all the lease and for sale signs, empty buildings. Yeah, it's a lot. He said I had to evict squatters. Yeah, it's a lot going on right now. It's a lot of different things going on. Of course, as they always say, we can't stop living our lives in the midst of everything going on. We can't create a thing of being so fearful that we kind of stay stagnant and complacent. But we also have to realize what's happening around us, because it ultimately will affect how things are, going forward in our economy and throughout the world. It says the third outcome is mostly like when Oxford's household income, home price, and mortgage rate projections are taken into account according to the report. So they say, why the gloomy forecast? These predictions are bleaker than those from other home index models, including the National Association of Realtors, because they include a wider range of cost variables, including property taxes, homeowners insurance, and HOA fees. So they're trying to factor in all these things that are causing the offset when it comes to higher monthly mortgage payments, right? Property taxes, as we know, and as people have seen now throughout the years, property taxes typically increase because of assessment of the value of the property value, right? If you're a homeowner and you want to see that your value increase, because ultimately if you go to sell it, you want to try to get money out of the house and hopefully move on to the next and pocket something. But in order to do so, you have to it also comes with that increased equity in the house, or price point per se of the house will come with increased property taxes, because again, they're assessing the property values. And then also some of these taxes are taken out as well, because if you want your city to start bringing in different things, like where I'm at in Cobb County, right? They bought in the Brave Stadium. With them bringing the Brave Stadium, it created more taxes city-wise, because they brought in this element of a Brave Stadium from out of the Fulton County district of Atlanta into Cobb County. So because of that, our taxes have increased, city taxes, excuse me, where I'm located. And so these are the different things that come about when you want to, when you want certain elements or different things in your district or in your city, in your county. Homeowners insurance, as you guys know, homeowner insurance is increasing as well, as far as according to some of the insurance carriers, they're like a replacement cost, different things like that. If we have to go out, and if you bought your house 20 years ago, and it might have cost, let's just say, $100,000 to build your house then, but now in order if the wind blows its shingles off, well, not shingles off, the wind blows your house right or left, I don't know, the wind would do that much damage. But again, we know tornadoes, hurricanes are winds and rains, and it cause damage. But different things like that, now it costs more to replace said things because of inflation and those, things, the wood and different things needed to replace that. So now your home insurance goes up. And then, of course, HOA associations, right? As far as inflation happens, now you need the cost of someone to maintain the pools, to cut the common grounds as far as in the community. Maybe your HOA is also covering the roof if you're in a condo building, and all these different things. All that has gone up, so your HOA goes up. And maybe the reserves in which they're dwindling, they don't have enough money in the reserve, so now they have to raise through special assessments. So all these is what they're taking into accountability with Oxford Economics, saying that affordability, they don't see a sight in affordability in housing for 7 to 10 years because of all these extra factors that the National Association of Realtors might not be fully taken into effect. So that is why they're saying what they're saying. Let me see. Alex said, wonder if opportunity zones might help. That could possibly be something as well, an opportunity zones. I know, certain cities do have that. I know Jersey has opportunity. New York has some opportunity zones as well. 2.0 starts Jan 1st, 2027. I'm like, is that what's 2.0? I gotta get clarity on that because I don't know what 2.0 means. Maybe I might have missed it. Sorry. Let me see. Kotex Caesar said my chest freezer arrives tomorrow. My canner was supposed to arrive today. Got email say I wasn't home. No, I was red doored. Red doored. You was red doored, so they just passed you by. They didn't want to drop off your stuff, so they just said you wasn't home. So now you gotta wait for them to come back around or go pick it up at the post office. Boo, HOA fees are. It says boo, HOA fees now at 40% of all homes. Yeah, I saw that as well. As far as the HOAs, 40% of all homes being built in America have HOAs, or as far as what they're, Hey, what's going on, Lang? He said, need Metro to Brave Stadium. Yeah, they moved it over, into Cobb, and so now city taxes have increased. My insurance increased, effective tomorrow, increased less than 10%, shopped around and couldn't beat it. Okay. So you were able to get, when your insurance increased, you were able to, well, you say you were, I guess you shopped around, you were able to find something a little cheaper if possible. He said, okay, all right. Sorry, I was just wanting to make sure I understood what you meant. All 50 states have opportunity zones and nominated by governors. I was like, let me make sure I understand what you said because I didn't know what the 2.0 meant, but now I know what you mean, the opportunity zones. Hey, what's going on, Corey? Thanks for joining. Good to see you as well. All right. Hopefully everything is going well down there in Florida for you. It says Oxford also uses a different measure of income than NAR that based on the U.S. Census Bureau American Community Survey resulting in a lower estimate. The report noted in 2024, for example, Oxford pegged the median income at $81,604, while NAR assessment at $101,360. So basically, they're saying that NAR, they feel like they're kind of over assessing people as far as what the median income is. But they, everybody uses different scales to kind of assess everything. The recent rise in homeowners insurance rates, particularly in the states like Florida, which we know in Florida as well, some homeowner insurance companies started pulling out. Some people were left without insurance. And also, if you guys don't know, typically, is it the best thing to do? It's not, but you can, if your house is fully paid off and you don't have a mortgage on the house, you don't need homeowners insurance. Would I tell you to do that? No, because you want to have homeowners insurance in case anything goes wrong with your home, right? As far as weather situations and things like that. But if your home is completely paid off and you don't have a mortgage, you don't need homeowners insurance. So some of these people in Florida probably, maybe if their home is paid off, they probably never went back out to seek any more homeowners insurance. But is it wise to do so? No. But do you have to get it? No, if it's paid off. Is also having an impact on affordability. If Oxford were to remove homeowners insurance from its calculations, the national index would rise from 77.9 to 83.5, said Nancy Van Den Houten, or Hutton, however you might say it, U.S.-led economist at Oxford Economics and the author of the report. So she is the one who kind of laid out the Oxford Economic Report. A need for more housing. Said the national housing supply crunch is also impacting affordability, with the report estimating the U.S. is currently short over 2 million units. With the new pace of new home construction insufficient to alleviate the shortage, the low number of existing homes going back onto the market is compounding the problem. So in regards to the housing shortage, I know you guys probably heard this before. Is there a true housing shortage? I don't feel like there's a true housing shortage, right? I feel like there's an affordability shortage, and then there also might be a shortage in regards to move-in ready housing, right? So we do have a lot of houses out here that are not move-in ready, that houses that do need to get some updating, some houses that may not be functionable as far as plumbing. They might be abandoned, they might be vacant. So yeah, we can't move in those houses. But is there a shortage per se when you calculate everything that's empty? No. However, there's an affordability shortage and a move-in ready shortage as far as actually homeowners being able to purchase said homes without having to do an extensive amount of work or renovation on the house. Those homes that are abandoned, vacant, that are atrocious looking. Those are homes that possibly an investor might want to take on. But some investors now don't even want to take those homes on because they're like, if I can't get it at a certain price point, it doesn't make sense as far as their after value repair, which is the AVR, or the ROI, which is their return of investment. It might not make sense to them in regard to buying said house if they can't flip it, put the work into it, and also come out with some type of return. And we do have this thing now where a lot of investors nowadays who are purchasing homes that are like that, they want a hefty return. You know, back in the day, investors might purchase a home like that and they might only be looking for maybe a 5-figure return. But nowadays we have a lot of people wanting 6-figure returns, right? We're in a different economy now, a different market where people feel like I need more money when I go and I, flip a home, and I need more back. Or even when I sell a home now, I want 6 figures, 7 figures, right? Not the typical. Back in the day, we might have saw you having 5 figures. You get lucky if you get 6 figures, depending on the price point of your house, right? But a common house that might sell for $200,000 back in the day, and if they bought it a couple of years ago, with the appreciation level being typically about 1% to possibly 5% a year, depending on where you're at. Again, it's regional, locational, everything like that. But you might not see a mass return in which we saw recently from the pandemic and the inflation when it came to equity, where you're seeing people home price, equity, or people's equity appreciating 100%, 300%, 50%, 70%, depending on where you're located. And so people who bought houses back in the day and in the 90s, the early 2000s, maybe, and even before even the pandemic, depending on where you bought, you might have saw a very high appreciation. And with that being the case, most people are trying to walk away now with 6 figures instead of what we would see before all this kind of took effect. We would see, people walking away with 5 figures. We would see investors flipping houses and only making 5 figures, maybe 30,000, 20,000, 50,000. Homeowners maybe walking away, like I say, maybe 20,000, 25,000. Sometimes you have homeowners taking a loss, sometimes breaking even, and now you have everybody wanting to make 6 figures. So that's where we're what I'm seeing. And again, that's what I'm seeing, I should say, not what everybody's seeing. Coach Texasita said, didn't even drive by. I always have my eye on the street. Okay. You said they didn't even drive by your house to drop the package off. They just lied. Clark, is homeowners insurance needed for a townhouse, being that HOA covers the upkeep? I'm learning so much from you. So homeowners insurance, if the house is paid off, you don't need it. You still will need it if you have a loan, because the lender is lending you money from the bank, and with them lending you money, they want to have some type of assurance that if the house burns down, catches a flood, something happens to damage said house, that it can be replaced. So if you ever need to sell it, they can get whatever return is still left on the loan back when you sell the house. So you will always be required, even if the HOA covers the upkeep, you will always be required to have home insurance on the house, unless some way somehow that HOA is also covering the insurance on the property as well. There are some HOAs, it's very rare that some HOAs will calculate insurance inside of the stuff, but typically most times, I'm gonna say about 95% of the times, because it's very rare, you will still need homeowners insurance unless the property is paid off in full and it's not required. So even if you're in a HOA community and your house is completely paid off, and if it's paid off, you don't need homeowners insurance. But do I advise people to go and not get it? No, because again, things happen and you don't want to put out so much in costs to repair certain things that you could possibly be able to do a deductible via your homeowner's insurance. And instead of paying thousands of dollars, you could pay maybe a couple hundred, depending on how you put your plan in place, and also depend on that deductible. Because sometimes, depending on your plan, it could be a lower deductible, maybe $500, and then it could be $1,000+ plus depending on how you structure your homeowner's insurance plan. But you, even if the HOA covers everything with upkeep, you will still need that homeowner's insurance. It says, so in regards to that, the housing shortage, I feel like I said, is houses that are as an unaffordable shortage, but then also in regards to move-in ready shortage of houses. But in totality, if we really want to be very specific and vague, there's not a shortage of housing. There's a shortage of houses available for people wanting to buy houses. The report estimates that the turnover of existing owner-occupied stock averaged 4.7% over the past year, bouncing around levels seen around 2009, 2012 during the global financial meltdown, and In contrast, the turnover rate in 2020 was around 8%. She says, I think more turnover in the existing market would improve housing affordability. So basically, as far as trying to get people to sell their house, put their houses on the market, even when it comes to builders, as far as them, she was saying more builders building more houses and creating this turnover effect to create more of possible houses being on the market, which will hopefully create more affordability. But that would just unlock existing supply and doesn't address the underlying shortage of housing units. So what we just kind of said. The Oxford's affordability index factors in a range of costs. Housing affordability is mainly driven by home prices, mortgage rates, and household income. Vanden Houghton or Hunt, I think it's Houghton or Hinton, I don't know, added more than twice as many Americans lived in the top 10 states with the highest home price to income ratios compared to the 10 states with the lowest price to income ratios where home buying is more affordable. While improving affordability misalignment persists, the disparity of Americans living in the markets that aren't affordable for them and echoed in other reports like in one from the NAR, which is the National Association of Realtors, and Realtor.com, featuring a listing income score. Overall affordability is moving in the right direction, they state, just more slowly, less evenly than many expected only a few months ago. So yes, we are seeing affordability depending on where you're located at. And it also is affordability compared to you as a buyer, right? Because someone that's making $500,000+ a year, $1 million a year or whatever, their affordability looks different compared to someone that's only making $40,000 a year. So we have to look at, again, we have to shift our mindset in regards to how we look at our own finances, even though we talk about this stuff on a bigger scale when it comes to real estate, this national level, and these things in which they're saying when they're creating these articles and these reports. This is all nationally, but you as a person, you have to think about yourself individually on your own financial scale, on your own level. You cannot go out and live the same lifestyle as a millionaire if you are working as a regular blue-collar American making $50,000 a year or less, right? And that's why you'll hear a lot of people, because most of America are blue-collar workers. We have, we're putting the straps on our boots and we're out there working hard. We're working endlessly hours to hopefully one day maintain and be able to, well, not maintain, but hopefully one day be able to get to that point of being able to buy a house. However, I've been saying this for years, and I know this is an unpopular opinion and most people don't want to hear it. Housing is, at this point, I feel like it's becoming a luxury. It's becoming a luxury. Most people won't be able to obtain homeownership, and most people might not want to be a homeowner. Some people are okay with wanting to rent the rest of their life. They don't want to own a home. They don't want to have all the upkeep needed, the maintenance needed on the home, right? They don't want to have to do those things. They rather call a maintenance man. They rather have, the apartment complex or the landlord cut the grass or whoever, right? Compared to other people who want to create a home where they want to do all those things. They want to take up the maintenance. They want to create a family. They want those elements, right? So, but we have to shift our mindset, and we'll talk about that a little bit too as we finish reading this, because I say a lot of stuff through experience, you guys, and so don't get mad at me when I say what I say when we talk a little later, because I know some people, it's going to be unpopular opinions. According to First American's latest home index price index data, affordability improved in 91 out of the 100 largest markets between February and March, a slight decline from the previous month when all 100 markets posted improvements. The housing market entered the spring season with strong affordability fundamentals than a year ago, but the recent rebound in mortgage rates is a reminder that affordability gains remain vulnerable to shifts in financial markets and the broader economy, Fleming said. So that's the end of that article. So as we know, they're basically saying that, of course, they felt like it was becoming more at ease as far as home prices not drastically jumping or a lot of bidding wars happening, and we were seeing that affordability with the rates kind of shifting down a little bit at the time. They felt like we were seeing an affordability in regards to homeowners being able to purchase and come back in the housing market. All right, let's shift over to this article real quick. This is on the same topic as far as that. This article was kind of talking a little bit about some stocks and stuff in regards to Zillow, but then I saw this piece inside the article in regards to housing. So I just wanted to make mention to this. It kind of flowed into like the last article where it says However, housing affordability, this is by Yahoo Finance, is now at a multi-decade lows because housing prices have risen significantly faster than household incomes. A value of 100 on the fixed housing affordability index means that a family with a medium household income can qualify for a mortgage on a medium home price with a 20% down payment. And so this is the thing, even about the down payments, right? Most people nowadays, they're possibly using FHA. With FHA, you only have to put 3.5% down. That's required. And these articles now, they're saying in order to be able to get a house, it's better for you to put down 20%. So they're saying, of course, your income has to be higher. And with that, with your income being higher, you can then put down more, and a 20% down payment would suffice as far as in this current housing market because of the housing being so unaffordable and so high in price. But in reality, let's be honest, most people are not exploring conventional. Most people are going FHA. You have veterans that are doing no down payment on. You have a USDA loans. If some people don't use USDA loans for no down payments as well, right? So everybody's not exploring this option of the 20% down. And even this is something too, when I tell people when they're on Zillow and they're looking at the Zillow, they're looking at houses on Zillow and they're looking at what the estimate monthly payment is on Zillow. Be mindful that Zillow is using a 20% down payment. Zillow has several factors in how they create that estimated monthly payment. So, and then sometimes too, the taxes that are being pulled that are shifted over to Zillow are not always right, because when it comes to taxes as well, if you guys don't know, in certain states, there are things called homestead exemptions and other exemptions that kind of are in the background. So what happens is if the taxes are being pulled, aggregated through our MLS from like the public records to our MLS and to these third-party websites, you're then getting some taxes that are incorrect. So you might get somebody that has a home exemption on their house already, and then they also have a senior property tax on exemption on their house. They have a school exemption on their house. They have these, or maybe they're a veteran. They have a disabled exemption, different exemptions. So their taxes, everybody else taxes in the neighborhood who's just a regular homeowner with just a regular homeowner exemption might say their taxes are $3,000 a year, and your taxes in this house that you're buying, the taxes might say $800. So if you're not understanding around you that the normal tax with that homestead exemption is $3,000, and you fall into that normal homestead exemption type of bracket with those people that live in the neighborhood, then you're not going to get the $800 a month home tax, right? I mean, a year, sorry, tax. So we have to, understand that the taxes will change as well. And so just be very mindful when you're looking at different things, as far as even on Zillow, looking at that estimated monthly payment, because it could be wrong. And if, even when you put the 20% down, it can still be wrong. And if you're buying a house, typically you have to live in it close to a year or the next exemption cycle before you can actually claim homesteads on the property. So if you bought the house, let's say this year, and let's just say typically in Georgia it's January through April, you file for homesteads. But even if you file for the homestead, that exemption won't kick in until next year. So you're going to be paying the current taxes, and then you'll get that new reassessment next year. So be mindful, everybody. If your state offers those things like that, look into it, have conversation with the realtor, maybe someone at the tax office. You can always call the tax office and have these conversations, right? Needless to say, let's get back into this. Historically, the vast majority of households could qualify, but the value of fell below 100 in recent years. So they're saying that most households cannot qualify to be able to purchase right now. The index would likely be even lower if it focused only on potential first-time home buyers, as it's somewhat inflated by including existing homeowners, who tend to have higher down payments. So they're saying that the index is off, of course, because if you're a home owner and you sell your property, typically you would have some type of money from the property that allows you to then go to another property and put a higher down payment on. You might not use all the money to put it towards the next house, but you might put a higher down payment. So you might not do 3.5%, you might not do 20%, it might be 35%, right? And so 50% depends on what you feel like you want to be at when it comes to your monthly payments, right? So they're saying that these numbers are kind of skewed. Aside from lowering mortgage interest rates and rising household incomes, another way to make housing more affordable is to increase supply. But as you can see in the following chart, U.S. housing starts have flattened while U.S. existing home sales are near multi-decade lows. I don't know if you guys can see this. I don't know if it's big enough to see. But so this in this chart right here is showing you, says U.S. housing starts is in purple. It shows you right here is at 1.4 million, and then existing homes is at 750,000. So they're showing how it's, things are decreasing. This means that developers aren't building new units fast enough, and existing homeowners aren't rushing to sell their homes, which reduce supply. And again, this is very local to where you're at. Where I'm at in Georgia, developers are building all the heck around us, right? We have every corner I turn is a new development. We have D.R. Horton over here building. We have Lennar over here building. We have Pulte building. We have so many different people building. Meritage Homes, they're just building about land that they were finally they're going through the zoning, the permitting. They finally started doing the demolishing trees, blah blah, arborists, blah blah. So it depends on where you're at, right? But we have a lot of building down here. So it says throw in the inflationary pressure of higher oils, and it's understandable that housing demand remains constrained. So this was interesting. It kind of played into the last information in regards to the housing, the unaffordability. When of course, it doesn't say when we can see affordability here, but kind of played into some of that. And then the rest is talking about stock market. So we're not gonna worry about that as far as different plays they said when it comes to stock market. And then we'll also talk about this as well. And then we'll get into some of my unpopular opinion. I'll also show you some updates in regards to if you're in Georgia, the housing stuff down here. But if you have any questions, like Croy, have any questions or whatever, let me know. I can, do the best I can. Of course, there's some things that's going to be specific to your state. So if it's a state question, I can't answer it because I'm not in Florida. But if it's a general housing question, I definitely can answer it because typically it's the same thing no matter where you buy a house at. When it comes to generalized questions. So it says housing affordability remained depressed in 2025. It says the National Association of Realtors Housing Affordability Index remains near historical lows in 2025. A score of 100 means that a family earning the median income can afford the median home price, which with scores higher than 100 indicating the family earns more than enough needed to purchase a home. So as you can see, they're saying that we were low, and then we went back, and then we went back, and now we're a little bit above 100. So it's saying with scores higher than 100 indicating family earns more than enough needed to purchase a home. And again, this is according to the National Association of Realtors, their index. And as I talked to you guys earlier, Oxford Economics said that their index is below 100 and NARS is above. So you have different data points that people are looking into. It says, as we know, home sales in 2025 remain low. Home inventory expected to continue to rise in 2026. So they're saying that in 2026, they expect more houses to come on the market. Of course, new construction, depending on where you're located, might be building out as well. And they're hoping that it'll help. If you guys don't know, and some of these new construction, where new constructions are being built at, these builders are now actually slashing. Well, they've been probably for the last year and a half. They've been slashing prices off of the homes. And of course, on the back end, they've been doing buy downs, incentives as far as closing costs, where they've been doing closing costs incentives up to $30,000, $50,000, $60,000. And of course, buy downs where they're buying down your rate from, let's say we were at one point, we were close to 7%. They were buying people's rates all the way down to 2.99s. Like I told you before, I saw an article come through by D.R. Horton for 0.99 interest rate as far as a buy down. I would think it was a 3-1 buy down, something like that. But they're doing all these creative ways to get people into buying a home when it comes to new construction, that now at this point, some of these new construction people are saying, hey, we're not even going to buy down and stuff or give incentives on the back end no more. What we're going to do now is we're just going to cut the price. We're just going to slash the price, because even with us giving these incentives, we're still hearing people struggling. Because at the end of the day, let's be honest, you guys, the ultimate thing that really matters is the price, right? And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, the rates, the rates, the rates, the rates. But as we know, historically, how home mortgage rates, historically, as far as the length of time that it's been, it's always for a longer period of time, I should say, it's always been between 5 to 7% for that mortgage rate. Like we've had spikes up to 17% in the 70s, early 80s, the 90s, 11%, 9%, 12%, blah, blah, blah. And then we shifted down during that crash, that melting great financial crash. And we started shifting down into like, from the fives to the fours. And then we laid in like the threes and the fours for a while until like 2019. And then we shifted down into, for the pandemic, into the twos. And so historically, when you kind of look at the actual chart from, let's say, even all the way back to the 30s to currently, we historically would see between a 5 to 7% as far as a mortgage rate, which was common for housing for a longer period of time, was in that sector. But now with the rates being at 6%, but the houses being overly inflated, it becomes harder because in America, a lot of people look at the monthly mortgage payment. What can I afford monthly? As we look at when we buy cars, we look at what can I afford monthly, as we look at whether you get life insurance, home insurance, all these different things, we look at what can we afford monthly, right? However, in actuality, we need to be seeing how, when we switch our financial mindset, we need to say, okay, how can I afford this comfortably without me feeling like I need to see what I can afford monthly? And in a sense, what I'm saying is that we don't want to get a mortgage at $2,500 a month because you feel like you can afford a $2,500 a month mortgage because currently maybe you're renting and you're paying $2,500. No, you want to get a mortgage possibly at $2,100 or $2,000 because if you understand how property taxes might go up, insurance can go up, HOAs can go up, as we're seeing inflationary stuff happen right now, right? When those things shift, you can still afford the mortgage without saying like, oh, how am I going to afford it now? So don't look at what you can afford currently comfortably. Go lower than what you can afford. So you put yourself in a comfortable situation when things happen to shift up. Because if we just look at historically, we know that everything is cyclical. It has ups and downs, right? We have trends. We historically kind of repeat certain patterns. If it's not, it might not be in the same way, but in some way, we end up in the same position again. Like where we're at now, and this is a similar position we saw years and years ago, right? But it's just done differently. So you don't want to set yourself up for a financial disaster. At the end of the day, people might say, "Oh, they might say, I'm not a financier, so I'm gonna say that I don't do finances, blah blah blah." But however, I'm in the housing market, as far as a real estate professional, and this is finances. This is your house. This is a finance. If you're not purchasing your house in cash, you're financing it. And so this then kind of gets me into an unpopular opinion. And I know you guys might be mad at me. Tell me how you feel in the live chat if you're here with me and you can chat with me tonight. And if you're watching the replay, I have been having this discussion lately, and this is how I look at it. And it's because I'm looking at it a different way in the financial mindset. I feel like if you are using a loan to purchase a home, you are technically broke. And I say broke in the sense of when you go to a friend or somebody and you say, hey, can I borrow $5? It's because you don't have it. Because if you had it, you would then use your own funds to then support what you need to buy. And I know some people will say, well, a lot of people that are rich, they rather borrow other people's money instead of use their own money. But I also tell people that's a rich person. Your financial situation is different from someone who has money than you. You have to look at it and contextualize it in your own existence. We cannot look over here for somebody that's wealthy saying, I'm going to leverage somebody else's debt because I don't want to spend my own money. If they're a billionaire, a lot of billionaires and millionaires have a lot of debt, right? They leverage other people's stuff. And then they come on to social media or all these platforms and they tell people, oh, leverage other people's debt, leverage other people's debts. And then you go out and you do that knowing that you don't have the amount of money or supply in your bank account. And now you're leveraging somebody else's debt. And now you're in a situation where you realize I can't sustain this. So this is an unpopular opinion. And I know people probably going to beat me up in the comments or in the live chat. But I feel like if you have to borrow money from someone, you are broke. And it's okay to be broke. we are broke. I'm broke. If you're using credit cards, and to make to kind of move your lifestyle along, you're borrowing money too, right? And it's okay. So we have to shift our mindset of how we think about finances to put ourselves in a better position so we don't end up struggling every month to pay bills, to pay your mortgage, to pay things like that, right? So if you put, let's just say, so what I'm telling people now, and most people can't do it, right? But if you can, when you're trying to purchase a house nowadays, because houses are so expensive, try to find either one, a house cheaper that's closer to a price point that makes sense for you financially, or if you want a bigger house, try to put more into it as far as a down payment. That's just how I'm looking at it. And again, it's just my unpopular opinion, but that's what I feel. That's how I feel, and that's what I've been, kind of running into lately. As far as I realize that when you're in real estate, and this has been a thing for a long time, we really have to. We see so many things with finances and how people go about financing things, and at the end of the day, I step out of everything. I have conversations with people, and then from there, I have to remove myself. Right. My whole goal, I always tell people, I want to put you in a good financial situation. I don't know what you're going to do after you get your house, but my goal is not to put you in a house to then run away and say, haha, I got you for buying a house, and just disregard your financial situation. So yeah, so I do have a lot of conversations with people with finances, even though I'm not a financier, I'm not a lender, but at the end of the day, real estate agents are salespeople. Lenders are salespeople. If you guys don't know, lenders make a commission too when they originate a loan. So everyone's trying to sell you something. So when it comes, and I kind of I'm pushing against the grain because it's a few realtors that will tell you, one, I don't think you should buy right now. Two, I don't think you should sell your house right now. And three, can you afford this? Because financially, on paper, from our conversations and what you're showing me, you can't. So I'm going to tell you the truth, the honest truth, because you hopefully trust me and believe in me to put you in a good situation. So if you say you want to buy something at this price point, I'm going to say that doesn't make sense. That doesn't put you in a good financial situation. I don't care if you feel like you don't have maybe no debt, or maybe you have one piece of debt or whatever, and you feel like you can sustain it. No, when you came to me, we sat down, we had conversations. You told me that you didn't want to be above this amount. You told me you wanted to be in a great place as far as your monthly mortgage. You told me all these things. So for me to then turn around and let you go on a cuckoo kind of whirlwind and start doing stuff that doesn't make sense for what we sat down and talked about, I'm going to hold you accountable to what you told me to put you hopefully in a great financial situation. Again, I can't tell you what's going to happen after you buy a house. Like, I don't know if your job is going to let you go. I don't know if you're going to start balling out and, taking personal loans out and buying Ferraris and stuff. I don't know. I can't tell you what you're going to do after, but I can tell you what we sat down and we discussed prior when you came to me and you had a conversation with me, and our phone calls and our texts, however you communicate, emails, we've had a conversation, and this is where you want to be at. So I'm here to keep you accountable to what you told me to put you in a good position. All right. Kotex said neither a borrower nor a lender be. Yeah, it's like, so it's just yeah, I'm going on a tangent, but that was like an unpopular kind of opinion that I was talking about. I'm gonna put this down because I want to mention another unpopular opinion as well, that most people probably don't want to hear either. Homeowners, if you are a homeowner, please stop using your house as a piggy bank. So if you are currently always digging into your house when something happens, or if you're just like, oh, I want to go on a vacation, oh, I want to do this, oh, I'm trying to do this, I know the lender will tell you, and they'll probably send you monthly, emails or yearly emails saying, hey, it's a good time to refinance. Hey, have you ever thought about getting a HELOC, a home equity line of credit? Hey, have you want to do a cash refi? Hey, you have enough equity to do X, Y, and Z. Please do not jump on the bait to do that. If it makes no sense, do not jump on the bait to go in and start using your house as a piggy bank. And the reason why I'm saying this is because now what I'm noticing when I'm looking at houses that are listed, if they're not investor owned currently in the market, these are home sellers trying to sell. And a lot of these home sellers have been refinancing the heck out of their house or pulling out equity lines of credits and all these things. And I can see it on the back end. I can see if you have second or third mortgages, I can see it. So I'm telling people, and then what's happening is that because situations have happened, you're pulling out and then you're trying to throw your house on the market to sell, and you want the buyer to then incur your debt that you pulled out and pay a higher price point because now you have to cover that refinance, that second mortgage, or whatever you did on the back end. So please, if it does not make sense as a homeowner, stop using your house as a piggy bank. It's not a piggy bank. Things were put in line for you to be able to use for purposes of distress. If you want to refinance, I understand refinancing in the sense of interest rates went down. I want to lower my monthly mortgage payments, or hey, I want to lower my loan term. I'm at a 30-year loan term. Interest rates went down. I can now move from a 30-year to possibly a 15-year, and it still brings me at the same monthly payments. So and those things you kind of do, right? You shift accordingly because you're trying to pay off the mortgage. You're trying to pay the house off. You're trying to ease the pain. But just to be pulling out your house and refinancing and HELOCs and all this stuff, no, stop doing that. I know I'm yelling at you guys tonight. I'm yelling at you tonight because I'm trying to make sure you guys understand that when you do things like that and you do these HELOCs or you do these things like that and pull out, sometimes those interest rates typically the interest rates are higher. Typically you have a shorter term to pay stuff back. And then what I end up noticing as well is that I see foreclosures popping up for the second mortgage, not for the primary, for the second. So just be mindful. So that's another unpopular opinion I'm telling people. Please don't. He said, yep, they tried to put $18,000 in my hand in 2007. He said, we didn't close. Yeah, it's like, you just got to be very mindful. Again, this is just finance is part of it all. Like I said, I'm a realtor, but at the end of the day, I'm sitting down and these are things that I'm seeing, right? So I'm just having this conversation because we want to play wise. We want to put ourselves in good financial positions, right? The goal is that if you want a house, you want to be able to keep the house forever if possible. So you want to pay it off. You want to make sure that, you don't foreclose. You want to make sure that if you do go to sell it in the future, you don't have a bunch of liens against your house that by the time you close out from paying those liens, a mortgage that might possibly be still on the house, also realtor fees if you decide to use a realtor, and depending on where you're at, you're paying title fees, you're paying closing attorney fees, you're paying all these fees. If you're in Jersey, you're paying an exit tax, you're paying all these different things. And by the end of by the time you turn around, you're like, well, dag, I thought my payout was going to be $50,000 and you had $5,000. So just be mindful, you guys. Be very mindful. It's an unpopular opinion. You probably don't want to hear it, but I'm going to be yelling at you tonight. LOL, they weren't happy. I know they weren't happy because they were ready to make some money off of you and they couldn't make the money off of you because you didn't close. Because when you're doing all those other things too, money is made on the back end. So of course, lenders, they might not say it, but at the end of the day, lenders, they make money too, y'all. They are in this, they sell as well. They're in the sales market. They're selling you. They want to originate a loan. Most people probably don't know this either, that they typically want you to stay in that house past 6 months, because if you decide to sell the house or if you decide to turn around and foreclose on the house and stop making payments, they have to then pay back their commission or as far as what they made on that loan. So they don't want you to sell the house within less than a certain period of time, and they don't want you to foreclose on it and stop making payments, because baby, they like, who paying this back? Because they made commission off of you, off of the loan origination and everything. Closing it. Hey Devon, what do you think about Atlanta rapper Mike announced a new rent-to-own housing initiative through his real estate company? It says the program aims to help families transition from leasing homes to homeownership. The initiative is already pursuing development. Yeah, I saw. Yeah, I saw that. I know him and T.I. were doing similar things as far as, because they do a lot of stuff in the city together. I'm all for it, the whole rent-to-own. But again, when it comes to rent-to-own, we got to put people in great financial positions, right? And also, I'm always perplexed as far as the rent-to-own programs, because I'm like, okay, if I'm renting from you, say the property, let's say the property is $200,000 and I'm renting from you, and by the time I decided to go transition into that owning stage, and I'm pretty sure there'll probably be guidelines set in place where it's like within 3 years or 5 years, you have to own it, right? Because you can't rent forever and then finally own it. But with that being said, if I rented it for 5 years and I pay in that 5 years, I paid about let's say $80,000 and the house was only $200,000, I feel like I shouldn't be paying $200,000 for the house. I feel like I should be paying 120 because I paid $80,000 in rent. Of course, it don't go like that, but that's just me, the mindset. Of course, the interest and all this stuff, and then they go about fair market value, and that's how you buy the house, and then the loan is determined, blah blah. Because everybody's in it at the end of the day, whether it's rent to own, resale, new construction, everybody's in the business to make money. Because America is a capitalistic country, it's in the business of making sure people make money some way, somehow on the back end. So there's nothing wrong with rent to own programs. I love it that you're trying to help people, you're trying to create initiatives, but I just wish that it wasn't so predatory as far as, well, I don't know if predatory is a word, but predatory as far as making sure people get in a place without having to feel like they're paying so much to make it work. And then also, I guess I would put in place with these rent to own properties that we, like I said, we kind of create like an income level to it, because most people that are renting to own, I don't want to say everybody, but I'm gonna do a small percentage, like 40% or 50%. Most times they rent because they can't afford to forwardly own, and like they can't go forward with it right away. They don't have the savings in place. They don't have, they have yet to climb up the corporate ladder in their job. They have different things happening, so they rent before they own because they don't have those things to kind of get into the home ownership lane. So typically those people do not make but so much, right? So I don't know. I just feel like it should be guidelines, protocol put in place, because I feel like rent to own is great for affordability purposes. But that's just my thoughts. But I like what you said, Lang. Appreciate you with that conversation. You said I'm curious about the details as well. Yeah, I'm very curious about the details. That's something I would have to kind of dig into deeper in regards to that. Kotek Caesar said I've never seen a rent to own work. Yeah, I haven't either. I'm gonna be honest. I haven't either, but I know they have worked. I know a lot of people who said they've gone through it. I personally haven't seen it myself. And there have been companies out there like Home Partners of America, Divvy Homes, all those things, and they haven't. A lot of them, some people work for, some people haven't. It's just because, like I said, a lot of it becomes predatory if you start like looking at it. And some people like, oh, this doesn't make sense when it comes to possibly paying more monthly to rent or different things like that. So it doesn't make sense. But hey, you never know. You never know. Can't count nothing out. Okay, so we kind of talked about the whole thing in regards to, as your homeowner, stop using your house as a piggy bank, because I want to talk about that tonight outside of the main topic as far as homes unaffordable until 2033. I got my little notes here, so I'm just reading them. We talked about home buyers as far as if you're financing, that we got to understand our finances, because if you are getting a loan from the lender or the bank, unless you have a lot of cash in your bank, you're broke. So we got to be comfortable with knowing that we're broke, and it's okay to be broke, but we have to move differently with our finances to make sure we're not broke. Because even when we move in a house as well, we want to make sure we have savings in place for anything that breaks, because guess what? Things break. It's home maintenance. All right. So if you're borrowing from a bank, it's okay. You're broke. Also, another thing that I run into a lot is that if you're coming to a realtor to try to get some information, or try to learn more about real estate or get their expertise, do not fight everything the realtor says, okay? I know that there are some things that you might feel, hey, this doesn't make sense, so just keep asking questions, right? But what I get that happens to me sometimes too, which I'm like, oh my God, I just told you this. Like I'll tell people something, and then of course you want to go back, you want to, identify and make sure it's correct. But they'll do the opposite, then they'll come back, then they'll do the opposite, then they'll come back, then they'll do the opposite, and then they'll be like, oh, Divine, this was right. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to guide you wrong. I told you this. Of course, everybody should go and verify everything, right? But I don't need so much opposition when it comes to coming to someone to try to get, information. And I'm gonna create an analogy. I'm not a doctor, so don't beat me up for this, because somebody beat me up before when I created this analogy. They're like, you're a real estate agent. You don't, how dare you create an analogy as like you're a doctor or you're a lawyer? I'm not. Nor do I don't say I am, because I'm not, and I respect doctors. I have doctors in my family. However, at the end of the day, if you go to a doctor and a doctor typically prescribes medicine or different things like that, most people don't question what the doctor prescribes you, right? To make you healthy or to help alleviate some type of situation. You trust in the doctor, you trust in their advice and their opinion, and sometimes people don't go and look for a second opinion, even though you should, but they don't. So when you're coming to a realtor that you know is a good realtor, they have great expertise, they are giving you some great insight. Yes, you definitely want to go and verify to make sure it's correct. However, do not create a lot of pushback if you verify it. Do not push against what you verified. And a lot of people tend to do that a lot, tend to push back when they're given advice to kind of guide them in the right direction. All right. So that's another thing that's becoming like a thing that I'm noticing a lot where people are like, creating this whole thing where I'm like, okay, we talked about this already. We talked about it about 5 times. So why are we why are we straying a different direction from what we talked about? So I just want to let you guys know, I'm not saying that listen to everything somebody says, because you don't do that. But it's like if we have conversations several times about it, we should be good. We should be good to go, right? Corey said, I'd rather just lock in a rate and payment with a loan rather than rent to own. I've seen them go wrong more than right. Then renters wasted money, taking time. Yeah, I'm like, the rent to own thing is just, I agree what you said as well, Corey. Like the rent to own thing can be tricky. I know a lot of people do it, and it's a great initiative in which people, they try to put out there. But it's very, I don't want to say it's rare, but it's low of course as far as like people kind of transitioning from that rent to owning type of thing. And I know a lot of people like Ti, Killer Mike. Those people are trying to do things to hopefully give more low income people a way into homeownership. So I understand it, but we just got to be mindful about how we transition people into homeownership, because ultimately the goal is to keep them as a homeowner. So then that, they can actually raise their children, their family. The goal is not to put them in a position that they're not able to maintain. Right. So, but yeah, but definitely if you can, like you said, lock the rate in, as far as when it comes to that. But and as you guys know too, make sure to ask your lender, if you are currently with a rate, and before you kind of lock in, ask them if they do anything of like floating down the rate. So if the rate shifted or changed before you locked in your rate, or like going under contract and locking that rate in, ask them if they have like that one-time float without a charge, without a fee, to make sure you're getting the greatest possible rate as possible. Also, if you are, because sometimes people go to lenders and like, oh, I'm shopping around lenders, which you should do. You should shop lenders, you should shop realtors, you should shop everybody. But if you're shopping around that rate as well, you want to make sure when you talk to a lender, because if you're like, oh, I'm shopping rates around, I'm trying to see what's the best possible rate from them, they might give you a rate. And when you get that rate that they give you, say it's a 5.99, and then but the APR is like a 6.8 or something, then I would make sure to look into the rate that they gave you. So ask for like a breakdown of how they got the rate, and see if they're charging you points, because some lenders might not tell you this up front, but they might be charging you points to bring the rate down. So you might be shopping around your loan, and one lender might give you the par rate, which means that there's no points or anything added into that rate, so you're getting the par. So maybe the par rate might have been a 6.5, but then you went to several other lenders, and then one lender is like, because you keep telling them that you're shopping around lenders, you're looking for the best rate. One lender might quote you a 5.99. You're like, oh my God, this is the best rate ever. But meanwhile, you don't realize they quoted you that because, one, they're listening to you say, hey, I'm looking for the best possible rate. And so they want your business because ultimately they make money off of you, right? So, and that them giving you that best possible rate because you keep saying that on the phone to them, they're going to add those points in. They're not going to tell you that they're adding those points in, and you're going to think you're winning on that rate. So just make sure when you're shopping your rate and you're looking before you even, whether you lock in the rate, try to see if you can get a possible, ask the lender on the phone prior to locking and say, hey, is it a possible like float down? Is it a float as far as if the rates change before I lock it in, what kind of float it down for free? Or if I'm locked in, how much would it cost if the rates change by the time I close, in order to get that cheaper rate? And like when you're shopping too, and you're saying, hey, I'm looking for the best rate, be very mindful if you see a big shift in the rate. And even if you do get a rate that's up to par for what the market is kind of saying right now, you can still ask for that whole layout, as far as to see if they're adding any points in there. But look at the difference between your rate and then the APR. So that's how you'll know somehow, depending on how drastic of differences it is, that there's possibly some points being added in as far as those fees and everything. So Hopefully that gave you some, some knowledge around that. But yeah, I think we have come to an end tonight. I appreciate everybody joining me. I hope I didn't beat you up too much in regard to some of my unpopular opinions. I know people will probably be emailing me and messaging me and calling me, and maybe seeing stuff in the Watchback Live. They might not like what I said in regards to those things, but again, the whole purpose of me saying it is just for you to shift your mind when it comes to finances. Real estate is a finance thing. Real estate is numbers. It has to make sense, and you have to make sure financially that you're okay. If not, you're gonna be online like these TikTokers and these YouTubers screaming about property taxes went up, their home insurance went up, and now they can't afford it, right? And everybody's trying to sell now that bought a couple of years ago. Now they locked in their houses really because they can't sell because ain't nobody buying no house. You might have got the rate with new construction at 3.99. Now, right now, the market is saying it's 6% for rates, and now you trying to sell your house for more in order to get out of it, and nobody wants to take it on because now they see the taxes then went up to so much when it outsources from the MLS to the Zillow or third-party websites, Redfin, and all these sites, and they're like, oh, I don't want to pay $5,000 a year for taxes and all this stuff, and now you're kind of stuck and locked in your house. So just be very mindful, understand your how real estate goes. Really have questions, conversations around it, so you're put in the best financial position as possible. Thanks, Lang. Great show once again. Thank everyone for joining us. Have a safe week. Thank you, Devon, for your knowledge, knowledge, and education. No problem. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate everybody. Lang, Croy, Coach Texasita, my dad, Alex, and everybody else who's watched who didn't get to comment, but I appreciate you being here watching. Hopefully, you'll get some insight out of what we talked about. And it's not about listening to everything I say. It's just about, taking some information and creating your own, thoughts around that and, listening to other people and then making sure at the end that you listen to your own personal thought about what's best for you. All right. Okay. So I'll see you guys next Sunday. Have a good night. Take care. Have a wonderful week.